What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Crypto Entrepreneurs Podcast. It's your host, Charles, and I have missed you guys dearly. It has been a very busy past couple of months, and I haven't had time to record episodes, but this episode's very important to me, so I wanted to sit down, get it recorded, and get it out there. It's the special one-off Pokemon episode. You guys have probably seen me tweeting about it. Been buying these first edition base set cards and flipping them for a profit. And then you've probably also seen these massive influencers like Logan Paul who have been opening these first edition boxes. So there's all out Pokemon mania and hysteria. So I wanted to talk about where the market's at, how you can get involved, and why we think the Pokemon market is going to continue to grow. So I'm sitting down with my buddy Psa. He is a longtime Pokemon collector and investor and has recently started a group to help teach others how to get involved. So today we're going to be going over investing, flipping, where the market's at, and where we think the market is headed. So if you've seen me tweeting about it and you've been interested and you want to get involved with much lower barriers to entry, this episode is perfect for you, and we're going to get into all of it in just a second. All right, so it is the first episode I've done in a very long time, bringing it back for something that is very close to my heart, and I'm sure very close to everybody else's hearts. We're going to be getting into Pokemon today, and I'm sitting down with Psa. How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? Big fan of the show. Thank you for having me on here.
Oh, I'm very excited to get into this episode. We've been working on some stuff together, and I've just seen how you kind of analyze and watch the Pokemon market, and it's something that I haven't seen before. You know, there is a little bit of Pokemon hype that has been going on lately, but there's no one who's as, I think, keyed into the market as you are with
Right.
some of your calls and some of the stuff that you talk about. It's the perfect person for this episode. So before we get into, Pokemon investing, trading, flipping, all that, can we just get a little bit of background on yourself, who you are, how you got into this, that sort of thing?
Yeah, sure. So I go by Faisal online. I actually run like a little eBay, Amazon store, and I've been collecting, cards for a very long time. So originally, I started on Discord with just doing my eBay store and, just focusing on that aspect of Discord. But the more I started seeing card groups and card collecting, the more I realized like how much of a passion I had for it, and I wanted to bring that for other people. So I've actually had like a pretty interesting past with Pokemon. I grew up playing it. I was a really big fan of it, but for like 10 years or so, I kind of lost touch. But then like I'd say like early 2017, I got really back into it. Like around Evolution's time, it became like something that I was really interested in. I started collecting more, and I just saw the potential as a market, and I just decided to dive straight into it.
It is, 2017 is when you really got back into it. And as we can see in this chart here, things have blown up since then. So
Oh,
you've
absolutely.
you've really caught the rise of this whole market. And can you talk a little bit more about this kind of passion that you're talking about? Because you said it was kind of sparked by seeing other Discords or people in Discord. What really draws people to Pokemon, in your opinion?
Right. So unlike other TCGs that are very popular, like Magic, um, Pokemon is completely nostalgic driven. Like it's Magic, cards gain value by being in meta or being super useful, but in Pokemon, you kind of see a very different approach. Very old cards are very close to collectors' hearts. So like you see something like a Pikachu or a Charizard and it's iconic, almost every person my age around the 20s or 30 age mark knows about that Pokemon and has, maybe even played the game. So that's what makes it very different and draws people in. That's what I think is really pushing Pokemon into like another level.
Yeah, the nostalgia of it all. It's funny because, I've said this a couple times now, is everybody and their mother was saying, oh, these are going to be worth something someday because we all had
Right.
Pokemon cards as kids and then we all kind of forgot about them. And now that they're kind of back and hot, everyone's like, holy shit, I remember my favorite card being the Charizard or the Blastoise or a Pikachu. And they want to get back into this market and it has gone bananas. So can you just go into kind of the Pokemon market a little bit more? Because I don't think many people understand how crazy it's gotten, what these cards are going for. So can you just start with, this kind of mania that we're seeing and explain it all?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Pokemon market is very interesting because there's so many different aspects to it. You have the OG video games, you have cards, you have modern, vintage, Japanese promos, US promos, booster boxes, elite trainer boxes. So there's so many different aspects to investing in Pokemon. And that's why I think it has so much potential because there's so much diversity. I focus more on the card aspect. I did for a while, collect some of the older games and they did go up in value. But right now, cards have been showing the most potential in sealed product and, PSA graded cards. Um, I think that overall, we should try and focus more on like, why the cards are valuable, like not just how do they, get to this point, like why is the reason that this card is worth money. That's one of the things that new investors have a very hard time understanding, but I think that's what makes Pokemon the way it is because vintage investors are the ones that have more capital now, and those are the people that are really driving the market.
I was going to say, it seems like, the younger generation, people my age, are starting to come into money. And so they're looking for places to spend it. And this nostalgia of the Pokemon market is kind of a perfect storm for people who are new to money who say, I maybe want to grab a couple of these cards. And it has very much pushed the price up.
Yeah.
And I've kind of heard some people start to say it's starting to lean more towards, the rare art market. Because if you
Yeah,
look at the price of a PSA 10 Charizard, it's at what, like 250, almost 300 grand now? I know
it's going to
Logic
cost
just
you a lot. Yep.
yeah, and so we're really getting into that almost fine art market, but there is that kind of smaller subsect of the newer cards that we have kind of been able to take advantage of. And so I kind of wanted to dive a little bit deeper on one, the investing aspect of it, and then two, there's a huge market for flipping these cards.
Right.
And so I think these are kind of the two big ways that we've seen people start to make money in this market. And I don't want to go into why maybe these cards are worth so much anymore. I kind of do want to talk about how people who are viewing this market or watching this market from the sidelines can get involved and start making money in this market.
Yeah.
So, do you think we could potentially start with the investing? Because that's more my expertise. I did a
Mhm.
little bit of base set first edition, posted about it online, made some good money, and that was kind of is kind of my area of expertise. But I want to hear from somebody like you about Pokemon investing as a whole, not just in those first generation cards.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So when it comes to Pokemon, um, in terms of investing, there's so many really good avenues right now. So originally, maybe a couple months ago, when influencers started really picking up on Pokemon, the first thing they all went towards was the first editions, the base sets. You had people like Logan Paul boosting up the market, and that really propelled the price of most first edition PSA 9, PSA 10s way past the 200 mark. So that was a really good introduction for a lot of people into it. But also something that I focus more on is Japanese promos because of their exclusivity. And it only helps when you're investing to diversify. So when it comes to these Japanese promos, they're from one region. They're very restricted. There's not a lot of them. And because there's not a lot of them, when you're sending them to PSA, you have a lot lower populations. And this by itself will drive up the price of them. Now you have things like, like the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. Those cards are going up right now because the 25th anniversary is coming up. So when you're looking at investing, you're using aspects of Pokemon to propel prices or project why this price is going to get there. So I think that at this point we can safely say that it is modern art, and I like the fact that you use that comparison between the two.
Yeah, it's getting to that phase. I know a lot of people look at it, they're like they're just little pieces of cardboard, but when you look at any kind of modern art, it's very similar. Why does this really have value? It's the backstory, it's the artist who has made them, it's the story behind it, and we're seeing the same thing with Pokemon. And you talked about the fact that, I don't know if everyone knows kind of the whole Pokemon market. So I kind of
Yeah.
want to rein it in a little bit. And you talk about the fact that there's very low populations of these Japanese cards. And
Right.
it's very similar for each grading of the card. So for anyone who doesn't know, you can open a pack of Pokemon cards and you can send it off to a grading company like PSA or BGS, and they will grade your card on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 obviously being the highest and most expensive and most sought after. That's why when I said a PSA 10 Charizard is going for close to 300 grand, it's because it's one of the hardest things to come by. And a big part of that is the population. So if you look at how many PSA 10 Charizards there are in a first edition, do you know the number off the top of your head?
I actually don't, but as they're very limited, and the price of them is going to escalate regardless because of, having a PSA 10 is a very big difference from having a PSA 9. And I think that's something that is important. And I'm glad that you actually brought that up. So I do want to talk about that a little bit, the difference between PSA and BGS, because that's a very common question that I get asked from beginners.
Yeah, please. Can you kind of go over the two? I know that they're both grading card companies. I know a little bit about, why some are more expensive, but can you, for my audience, explain the difference between the two and then go into maybe pricing a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when it comes to pricing for grading cards, most of the time in the Pokemon market, people are going to go with PSA. PSA is the more affordable and it's the more popular. You're going to see more PSA Pokemon cards on the market than BGS. But one of the things that is for, more serious collectors, people that are really doing this a lot, people tend to gravitate towards getting a BGS Black Label. And the thing that makes BGS very different from PSA is PSA doesn't have subgrades. BGS does. So you'll see things underneath there like the centering of the card and other things that have aspects to build up the entire grade. And when you have a BGS Black Label, it's basically the most pristine card you could possibly have. And that alone will just, drive up the price of the card, and it just makes it a lot more valuable than a PSA 10. Um,
All right,
I'm
so
sorry,
it's
what else
based
did you?
it's based on four different factors, right? It's the centering, the surface, the edges, and the corners, right?
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah,
So for to get a BGS Black Label, which is a perfect 10, all four of those need to be perfect.
yeah.
Whereas if there's one little slight inconsistency, you can still get the 10 from PSA, but you won't get that Black Label on BGS. It'll just be the standard 10, not that Black Label. So I'm assuming that the BGS Black Label is the most expensive. After that, is it PSA 10 and then PSA is more expensive than the BGSs of the same grade, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's actually quite an interesting system because you'll see the BGS Black Label be the top price. Then
Hmm.
you'll have your PSA 10 after that. Then you'll probably have your PSA 9, BGS, 9.5s, 8.5s. They can go up in price depending on how popular the card is, but for the most part, you'll see the entire value of the card's graded system be dictated by PSA.
Got it. So for anyone who's looking to start investing in this market, if they're going for the top of the line, most expensive cards, they're going to be looking at the BGS Black Label. And then
Yeah.
from there, if you have the opportunity to buy a card, let's say you've got a BGS 9 and a PSA 9, just know for anyone out there that PSA 9 will go for a higher price normally than the BGS 9. So it's counterpart. But then you have those half labels, like, or the half grades, like a 9.5. And so a BGS 9.5 will generally go for higher than a PSA 9. And I know that's a little bit tough to follow, so I apologize for that. Can we maybe get into how we get these cards graded? Because I know a lot of people who are in my DMs. I've started talking about Pokemon a lot, and they say, I have all of these cards. They're what are considered raw cards, means they're not graded. And they say, what do I do with them? I say, you can either sell them raw or you get them graded. And people seem to be a little bit confused on how the grading process works. So do you think you can give us kind of a run through of what you would do if you have these raw cards and you want to get them graded?
Yeah. So when people start off, the whole grading system can be kind of complex or seem complex to people, but it's not as difficult as we make it out to be. When you get your graded cards, usually you want to send them in bulk. You probably don't want to send off one card to grade. Basically, what you're doing is you're packaging the box, depending on what you decide to choose, BGS or PSA. There's also CGC, which is a newer company They're known for grading comic books, but they're starting to dabble in the art of Pokemon because of popularity. But regardless of the company you choose, you go to their website. They should have instructions and pricing on specific cards. Usually, they diversify by whether the card's modern, and they have a ton of subsections that you can go through. You basically pay there. You're shipping your cards off to the company, and you will probably return them in maybe 3 to 4 months, depending on the company. Right now, PSA is very backed up, so I know that they don't have estimates on when the cards get back, but they have very good instructions on their websites. It's mostly the packaging that I worry about for beginners. When you're sending off your raw cards, you want to make sure there's not space for them to move. So putting them between cardboard and taping that up, just making sure it's really secure, is the first thing that most beginners overlook.
Yeah, I've watched some YouTube videos on people opening packs and opening cards. They're very famous YouTubers. And they actually get sent cards from people all the time. And I always cringe when I see people who have, put rubber bands around their cards to keep them all
Oh
together.
yeah,
It's just like you're ruining the card by doing
yeah,
that.
that's a no go. That's a no go right
So
there.
yeah, I mean, anyone who has old cards who potentially wants to get them graded, what you're going to want to do is package them up nicely. There's actually these things called card holders, I believe is what they are, or card savers. So you put it in a little sleeve, put it in the saver, package up your box nicely so it doesn't move around at all, and then you'll send it off.
Right.
Now, for people who have found these old cards who say, I don't want to wait that 3 to 4 months, the Pokemon market's very hot right now, I'd like to get rid of my cards right now. What's the best place to do that? How have you been selling your cards? Where's your go to method?
Yeah, so you can still sell your cards raw, and I think that that's something that beginners might want to look into if they're not really comfortable with the whole grading system yet. Uh, you know, Raw cards fetch very good prices on eBay, and actually, recently a set that's very popular, modern set Shining Legends, is popping off. It has a Shiny Mew card in there, which raw I think is selling for around 60 to 50 to $60, and that's basically the box, the ETB box right there. That's the price. So depending on the raw card you get, and even vintage cards can go way over that. Depending on the card, you can basically make all your money back on whatever you open the card from. So I think that looking into raw cards shouldn't be overlooked, especially if you don't think your card might get a PSA 9 or PSA 10. You might want to just settle for getting the card off quickly instead of spending money grading it and then having to return it and then sell it.
100%. And, I always preach for the newer sets where all of these cards aren't very expensive yet. It's hard to justify spending the money to get it graded because even the graded cards at a 10 or a 9 aren't going for too much.
Yeah.
So with those newer sets, you should look into the pricing differences, if it's worth it to get it graded or if you should just sell it raw. With some of the older cards, I generally recommend getting them graded because even the very low graded first edition base sets and the base set cards are still going for a ton of money, and you're gonna pay or you're not gonna get that huge premium that you would get with it being graded if you're just selling the cards raw.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So really quick, this is another thing that people have asked about that I want to cover before we get on, because this is all kind of what I consider investing still. So if you're looking at raw cards to buy, what are you looking at here? What's kind of your criteria for I'm going to buy a raw card? And then what are your thoughts on selling it again raw, or do you always prefer to go then get it graded to sell?
Right. So if I'm buying a raw card, 80 to 90% of the time, I'm buying the raw card to grade. When you're buying cards, you can always buy a raw to, hold for a long time and then sell it, but it would still be in your best interest to have it graded, as that can only really increase the value as time goes on. Because as a collector in Pokemon or investor, you need to know that time is really like the biggest factor and your biggest ally when it comes to Pokemon. So if you're buying a raw card, you need to look for specific things such as the centering of the front card. A lot of cards, when made by Pokemon, they have defects where they're slanted to the left, slanted to the right, or just really off center. That will decrease the value of the card and also the grade that the card will get. And it's the same kind of thing with the back. You also want to look for scratches. Scratches are very important, especially on hollow cards. You can kind of see them more visibly. Those will decrease your card's grade also. And there's one thing that a lot of people overlook is like white specks. If there are like specks on the side of the card or the back of the card, they're kind of hard to notice sometimes, but those will also decrease. That can be like the difference between a 9 and a 10, depending on who's grading your card.
Just one tiny little white speck and you're
Yeah,
done for.
yeah, yeah, and you're done.
Yeah, and it's tough because a lot of these older cards, even though they've been sitting in binders, in basements, or in attics, they've still just had that general wear and tear over the last 20, 25 years. So
Yeah.
it's very hard to pull any kind of perfect 10 or even a 9 from these old sets.
I'm
So,
actually glad you brought that up because one of the common things that beginners have issues with is buying cards in binders. And as much as I like vintage cards and some binders can be really good, it's really risky. And I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of these cards are kept in binders in the best condition they can possibly be in, but over time there's white specks that just come in, and it's really hard to gauge what condition the card is in from just pictures of a binder.
yeah, exactly. And a lot of the times they do show you the fronts of these cards, but the backs are where you're going to see most of the damage. So
Yep.
for anyone out there who's, maybe on eBay or on social media sites looking to purchase some of these older cards, my biggest tip for you is to just really make sure that you are analyzing both the front and the back and asking for as many pictures as possible. Some people try to get away with just throwing one or two pictures at you and hoping that you agree to buy, but really take the time to analyze these cards. Also, another tip is if you go to PSA's website, they have a full rundown of why or how they grade each card. So you can click on the 10 and it'll give you kind of the full description of what they're looking for to give it a 10. And you can go through the 9s, the 8s, the 7s, all the way down to the 1s, and it'll be a full description for you. So check that out. Start to learn about the grading process if you do want to get into the raw market and start investing in raw cards to flip or grade. So before we move on to the flipping, there's still a couple more things that I do want to talk about on the investing side. One of which is the calls that you have been making lately. They have been on fire. You've been killing it. So can we maybe pull up some examples of the cards that you've said, this is what I think a good investment is? And can we go over why you made that decision?
Sure, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I really have been focusing on recently is the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. So with the 25th anniversary, a lot of cards from the 20th anniversary are things that I've been really focusing on and looking at because, as things become more vintage and the further we go down the line, these cards will gain in value and these boxes will gain value. I think one of the best things for beginners in Pokemon is to look at box investing. It's really safe. It's probably the safest way to keep your money in Pokemon. Sealed product is usually going to go up. I've never really heard of anyone really losing product on that. So one of the calls that I made recently was the Generation Elite Trainer box at $200 because it's the 20th anniversary Pokemon box. It's nostalgic. It's got very, close to the heart investment Pokemon in it. So I just didn't see how this could not increase as we get closer and closer to February. So I actually had a lot of people in my group buy these at $200, and within a couple of weeks, they were selling for $400, $500 on eBay, and I think they settled back down at like 350 right now.
There we go.
Yeah,
So this, again, you're kind of looking at the macro perspective and trying to understand what's driving the market as a whole.
right.
So, we have this 25th anniversary coming up. It's in February is when it starts. You also have these big time influencers. We saw Logan Paul opening boxes.
Huge influencer.
That's the thing. So huge influencers pushing kind of people towards this market, getting eyes on the market. You then have that kind of trickle down effect where these smaller influencers or like the tier 2, 3, and 4 influencers try to ride that clout. They're trying to follow in his footsteps. We saw a couple other people buying boxes. We see now people buying the cheaper boxes because the first edition base set boxes are just obscenely priced. But these are all things that kind of have pushed the market as a whole. And so this is the 20th anniversary box. And
Yeah.
we're now coming up on the 25th. And so your reasoning was, it's another one of those anniversary boxes. People are going to be talking about the 25th anniversary. next best thing, or while they're waiting for that to come up, is these 20th anniversary boxes. And
Yep,
you were
absolutely.
you were spot on with the pricing here, with this $200 call, and then it hitting. Very shortly after that, I saw it going for 500 or very close to 500 on eBay.
Yep.
So I love the way that you kind of watch and view the market as a whole. Before we get into kind of the flipping aspect of it, 'cause everyone's getting hot on flipping Pokemon cards lately. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with regards to actually investing in the market?
Yeah, I actually did want to just talk about this real quick. So when you did ask me how do people start, a really big thing that I think needs to be addressed is, just doing a little bit of basic research, regardless of how much money you want to put into it. Just have an idea of, why you're buying the card. So a little bit of basic research and just play the game safe when you're first starting off. Invest with long-term growth at first and, don't dive too heavy into it, trying to flip thousands of dollars in a day. Invest with a long-term goal. And if you hit that goal sooner, like in situations like this call, it works out like that sometimes.
There we go. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, because, I've heard the term bubble thrown around. I don't think we're there yet, but, when that term starts getting thrown around and markets do get too hot, there generally is some sort of pullback that we will see. It doesn't have to be now, it could be 3 years from now, but eventually they do happen. And so, what I want people to realize is that, like any other investment or market, you should not be investing more than you can afford to lose. You need to start slow. You see these guys who are throwing around big amounts of money, buying up cards like crazy. There's almost this hysteria to it. And we kind of want to push people away from that. You need to take it very slowly, do your research, understand what's going on in the market as a whole before putting any of your money towards it, because there is that chance that you end up losing it. I don't think that Pokemon will go to zero at any time, but prices could pull back and you could be stuck holding a card for the longer term, which is why I really like you saying, think about this as a very long-term game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we talk about, bubbles in markets, I think Pokemon is a little safer from that or a little, there's a preventative measures when investing in Pokemon. And I don't think that we're going to reach a bubble very soon. But, because there's different aspects, there's, Japanese cards, there's different promo cards, there's very different avenues. So it's not as if we're going to all hit that same price for vintage in like a year or so. So I think that it's still very safe to invest. And as long as you know what you're doing and, know the risk, you can have a very good collection started and you can make good money.
Exactly. And that was a big thing that I do want to talk about, because you look at the first edition base set and those prices are insane. You look at the first
Absolutely.
edition box, it's nuts, but there's good reason for it. It is the very first, other than the Japanese set that came out before it, which was technically the originals. These are the
Yeah.
first American issued cards. There's very limited population, and the people who are gunning for these are, I would say, much wealthier and okay with purchasing these cards at that high price. But not every market has done that. You talk about the Japanese cards, you talk about newer sets, even, base set 2, you got
Right.
Jungle, Fossil,
Yeah.
all the way up through, the last 25 years of cards. It's really just that first edition base set that has seen this insane boom
Yeah,
versus most of the other
absolutely.
cards. And so I think if you're trying to get in as a new investor, you should maybe look at some of those other sets and other cards before jumping in and buying some of these first edition base set cards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. So is there anything else before we move on to kind of the flipping aspect of things?
Yeah, I think you covered most of the investment part. I think that you addressing at that end that there's still opportunities outside of base set is very important, and I'm glad you did bring that up. But I think we can dive right into the flipping aspect.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, I personally run a flip group. It's an Amazon group. We focus on flipping products. It's called Arbitrage Ops. So I'm pretty keyed into this flip market, and there is a huge market for it on Twitter. There's what they call cook groups out there. And people are doing this with Pokemon. They're flipping cards, they're flipping packs, they're flipping boxes. So can we get into the world of kind of Pokemon flipping and get
Yeah.
your perspective on it?
Yeah. So when it comes to Pokemon flipping, there are some really, really good opportunities right now. Like we haven't seen things like this happen so fast because of the growth in popularity. But when you're looking for purely profit or to make a profit to, fund your collection, in store alone, there's ways to make $500, $600 off of just boxes that are released. Right now, we actually have the Kanto Power Collection that just came out, because Evolutions is a modern set that has, base set characters and base set Pokemon in it. It's exploding. So this Kanto Power Collection is going for, $120 in sets of two. So that's even one aspect of investing in flipping. But there's also the boxes that you can go for. Recently, a set that came out in 2017, Shining Legends, it's ETB, which retails at $50. You were able to grab online, and now they're worth, $200 each.
There we go. So these are, I guess it could be considered short-term investing, but
Yeah.
there are some where, like, you look at the boxes, they sell out immediately, and
Yeah.
then you can immediately turn around after buying it and flipping it for 1, 2, 3x the price. So can you give us some examples of the most recent boxes that you've maybe talked about? I know this was one, but this was more of it's slowly kind of increased. It quickly increased, but it wasn't an immediate flip. Are there any products out there right now that people can't get their hands on, where you can buy it in store or online and immediately turn around and flip it for profit?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of those is, people, like I said earlier, people are still in store buying that Kanto Power Collection. You could also find Hidden Fate tins and the Champions Path set that just released. Those are reselling right off the bat right now. You can get, you know, $30 profits on some of them, 50%, 100% profits on these cards by just checking your local stores. There's also a really, really big card set that just came back out, XY Evolutions. It's ETB, it wasn't reprinted, but it was restocked by Walmart. And those alone, if you find them in store, are going for 150 each, and they're retailing for 30, $40. So if you go in store, you have chances to make hundreds of dollars in Pokemon just by flipping that.
Yeah, and so these main stores that we're talking about, are we talking mostly Target and Walmart? Because I know you can get Pokemon cards in both of those. Is there
Yeah.
anywhere else that you're looking to try to secure some of these for those quick flips?
Yeah. So most of the flips you can find at general retailers, but Target and Walmart is what most people are gonna, know and associate with Pokemon flipping and finding packs in general. But there are stores like Major. It's a Michigan-based supermarket, I believe, and they have their own mystery box. These mystery boxes basically have seeded vintage packs in them, and because of that, they're worth more money. They're flipping on eBay, and they're going for, $40 profits, $30 profits on a $20 investment. And the one in Major specifically has graded cards in it. So when it comes to Pokemon cards and packs, you want to weigh them out to figure out which ones are heavier, which one might have the vintage pack. But it's pretty dead cut when you have a graded card, which one is heavier than the other. So there's hundreds of chances to make profits. It depends on the stores you want to go to, but most supermarkets have something you can make profit on.
So there actually is another one that is a pretty well-known supermarket that has these mystery boxes. And are you okay with telling the people about this, or are you trying to keep that kind of on the down low still?
Oh yeah. So my group had an opportunity to catch those a while ago, so I feel comfortable talking about it. Most people are on Reddit, Twitter talking about it, but
There we go. So,
uh
so if you want to get into that one.
yeah, sure. So right now Walgreens has a Pokemon mystery box that has vintage packs in it. A lot of people have been finding, base set packs, fossil packs, all kinds of cool stuff in it. And of course, you could always open them, but I personally don't like the mystery boxes for opening. I prefer to flip them. You could always open them. People have found great stuff, but the profit you can make by just doing that alone, you could generate buying a PSA 9 card or something to invest for long term too. Or you can just spend the money however you want to do it.
Yeah, so this again, like I don't think people understand how almost easy it is to make profit off of these. You head into your Walgreens, you hit the aisle, you find these mystery boxes if they're there, and then you can turn around and you're buying them for 20 and they're selling for between 40 and 50,
Yeah.
sometimes upwards of $60. The more that people buy them and open them, I do think the price is going to increase on eBay. And so we could see that price kind of increasing as more people want to get their hands on them.
Yeah.
But these are just a few examples of those kind of quick flips. But I think for the most part, people have issues with walking into a store and looking at this big display at Walmart and just not knowing what they're looking at. So right now, off the top of your head, are there any packs, tins, the pin collections, or boxes that they should be looking for when they're going into these stores?
Yeah. So I actually did recently do a segment, explaining what in-store cooks to look for and, having them listed kind of by priority. So for priority, the first things you should be looking at are, you want to look for your elite trainer boxes from Evolutions, the blue Blastoise box or the red Charizard box. That alone, like if you pick up 5 or 10 of those, you're looking at $200, $300 profit. You want to pick up your Kanto Power Collection. I think that's high priority also. Mid priority, I would say your Hidden Fate Champion's Path, because Hidden Face is a reprint. I don't see the profit margin as high as the other ones, but there still is profit to be made, a good amount. And Champion's Path is a very popular set, and a lot of new investors are, flocking to it by the thousands. I think that that's going to have great potential in the next year, but I don't see it as a quick flip.
Quick flip.
So
So the thing was, it was a very quick flip when it first came out. And so I was just wondering if there's ways that you're kind of keyed in to know when these new boxes are coming out, where to look for them and secure them. Because when Champions Path first hit, they were $40, I believe, or maybe 50.
40, 50, yeah.
Yeah, pre-sale on Amazon, on some of these other sites. The group I'm in, Arbitrage Ops, we talked about it. Cole, one of the guys who runs it with me, bought a ton of boxes, about like 40 boxes or something like that, and was
Yeah.
able to he ripped a bunch of them, but he was immediately able to flip them on eBay as soon as the pre-sale ended for between $80 and $100. Some of them were getting up to around 120, I think.
Yeah.
And the cards inside were going for a ton as well. So how are you kind of staying up to date on these new boxes that are coming out, new sets, where to look, how to secure them before they hit eBay and you have to pay resale for them?
Yeah, so I usually stay on top of, most of the Pokemon news in terms of the TCG by just, being active in Twitter communities, just being active in my group. People talk a lot about them, and just staying up to date with Pokemon's calendar on releases. I think that's really important so you don't get like just caught off guard by like some crazy release and, it gets sold out quickly. So just knowing what releases are coming out for that month and just keeping up to date with basic community stuff.
There we go. So for someone who's very new to this, how often are new sets kind of coming up, and how often are we seeing new product hit the market?
Yeah. So that's a good point that you brought up. New product is a lot different from new sets. So, we have sets like Evolutions that I've talked about before in this podcast, but there's still new products coming out for it. New sets are a lot less common. You have maybe like one every 2, 3 months, but new products are coming out basically like once a month, not even once a month, maybe 2, 3 in a month. So there's new products coming out. It's not always, high quality. You're not going to get a Champion's Path every week. It's just, having to know which ones are good and why they're good.
There we go. So you really do need to stay on top of the market if you are trying to kind of be first to market and squeeze out the most profit from it. And if you're a little bit more lax and you're not staying as up to date, you can still, after the fact, find these boxes, get the restocks, that sort of thing. But to really, really kind of make the most of it and squeeze the most money out of it, you should be paying attention to the Pokemon news that's coming out, figuring out when new boxes are dropping, when new products dropping, and being the first ones on those products. So we have the Discord up. There's a lot of stuff in here. And I was just wondering if we could maybe go through some, because there's still so much more to investing and flipping that we haven't talked about. So maybe we can get into some of the stuff that the Discord offers, and then we can relate that back to how it works with regards to investing or flipping.
Yeah. So the Discord does have a lot of stuff in the channels, but when it comes to investing and flipping, I think one of the things that our group does well is having everything organized so it's very easy to understand and digest for new people. So one of the things that I'm very happy that our group has is in-store flips, and we kind of just explain what to look for when you're in the store. It's something quick you can pull up on your phone if you're just kind of confused. So we have all the things that I just talked about earlier pretty much put out and explaining why they're profitable and showing kind of the price estimates for resale. We also have upcoming releases. We kind of explain like the releases that are coming up that are good, not just the fluff ones, and why you want to invest in these ones. We have graded card investments. These are the ones that I like beginners going for because they're kind of the safer ones and easier to understand. You're not really grading the PSA card, you're kind of holding it and just allowing it to grow. It's something you kind of just do passively. We have sealed product. Sealed product is really, really good. I really like it. I stand by it as a personal investor. I have a lot of it. I just kind of explain which ones to look for.
So
Not everything has to be first edition.
yeah, I don't know how you do it because if I had my hands on any of these products, I'd rip it for
Oh
sure.
yeah,
If I
yeah,
had a jungle pack, if I had Team Rocket box, I'd rip that shit so quick. So I
yeah,
love that you're able to hold on to them. And these again are more. You're saying these are more for investing purposes, right?
yeah, yeah,
There we go.
yeah. So these are for more investing, and then when it comes to flipping, you're kind of looking for cards that are going to jump, or you're looking for in-store product that's already at a market price that's above retail. So when you're looking for cards that are going to flip, you're looking at graded cards. Graded card flips maybe aren't as fast as, product, but I would say that a flip would still be constituted within 30 days or a month.
100%. I actually do want to get into kind of my Pokemon adventures and how I was flipping cards. So we can talk about that maybe towards the end, or I can get into it now if you're okay with that. Because I was going off of graded card flipping, and that was like
Yeah.
my go to thing.
Yeah.
So if we can take a little side note for a second, I can kind of try to explain what I was doing there so that others can try to replicate it if possible.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's talk about it.
So
I'm interested.
I really appreciate that you pulled this back up right here, because if we look at it, you've got the tens, the nines, and the eights all together, and you
Hmm.
can see that the nines are selling for a little bit over half the price of the tens historically, and then the eights are selling at around half the price of the nines. And so what I was doing was I would watch eBay markets
Yeah.
and they do auctions on eBay. Like PWCC has a huge auction that they do every once in a while, and so I'd watch the market and I'd look at historical pricing, and I focused on the nines and the eights. Because the tens were a little bit out of my price range, and I was not
Yeah.
as comfortable, I'd say, dropping that much money on the tens. But so, for example, I focused on Blastoise a lot just because it was my favorite card. And so I watched an auction end, and it was the tens. And tens, I think the 10 ended at just under 40 grand. And I
Hmm.
looked at the historical prices of the nines and saw that they usually went for around a fourth of the price. So my thought then was buy every single nine that I can get for under 10 grand, and I should be able to turn it around and flip it for 10 grand, which is about a quarter of the price that it sold for, as soon as the market catches up. And so I would go in, I'd buy all the nines at around or under 10 grand. And then I would look at the eights and I would say, okay, the eights are usually half the price of the nines. So the nines should be under 10 grand. That's a good buy. They should go to 10 grand. And then the eights, anything under 5 grand, which is half the price of the nine, is a good buy. And it was pretty try, true, and tested that whenever an auction went off, you'd have a very short window of time where you could buy those lower graded cards at under the market value or under the historical market value, and then prices would slowly catch up. So I'd buy an 8 at say 3. I think one example is I bought an 8 at 3.2 grand and then another at 3.6, and then I think there was actually one at 2.8 that I also bought. So all right
Yeah.
around the 3 grand range when I was thinking that they should be selling at around 5 grand. Within,
Yeah.
I'd say, 2 weeks, I was able to sell one at 4.8, one right at 5, and the last one at 6 because the entire market had risen over that time period. But it was still a very short investment flip, I would call it, because it's under that kind of 30-day range.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for anyone out there who's watching these eBay markets, I would say look at the historical prices of the graded cards and then watch auctions for those higher graded cards and try to snag some undervalued cards in the 8, 7, 6 range, and then hold on to them as the market plays catch up and the news kind of hits that, all right, the 10 is now this price, new market price for any other card graded underneath the 10.
Yeah. So I actually do like the fact that you brought up the relationship between PSA 10 prices and 9 prices because that's something that you could use to your advantage a lot in Pokemon. So as you explained, the Blastoise PSA 10 card was on the increase, and just like you said, there is a ratio between PSA 9 and PSA 10 prices. Usually it's between, one third to one fourth of the price. So if you see a PSA 10 card increasing, that's a very good indication to catch the PSA 9 at a good price because it's very likely that card will follow suit. So that's one of the ways you can really flip Pokemon cards if you spend a lot of time on the markets, and the auction sites that you were talking about on eBay are very good, very reliable. If you spend time on there, you can find very good deals just by doing that, following PSA 10 prices and just catching the 9 and riding the wave.
Exactly. I know a lot of people think that to flip cards, you got to either buy a box or get a tin or a pin collection in
Yeah.
store and get some of that stuff that's really hard to get people's hands on. And they usually think the newer stuff. But
Yeah.
in reality, you can flip, graded cards very easily. And it takes a lot of the risk out of the market because you're not holding for these longer time periods. It's, I'm going to buy, let the market catch up, and sell very shortly. Like, I think the average hold time for some of the cards that I held on to was maybe 2-3 weeks, a month at the most. And so a lot of people talk about this idea that, the market could come crashing down. And my thought was, I'm holding these for such a short period of time. I don't even need to really worry about it.
Exactly, yeah. So that's one of the things that is really good about graded cards. You can hold them for a very short amount of time and see very big increases. I think that, flipping vintage cards, it's a little more expensive now, but still there's still margins to catch. I mean, you can catch a PSA 9. I mean, I had people catching PSA 9 Raichus from the Team Rocket first edition set for around $300 at a 9. And within a couple months, I think it was a month and a half, it was a $700 card. So, just catching them at good prices, it doesn't have to be, you know, $300. It could be $100. It can be $200. It can be $500. Just getting a good price and seeing an indication that the set's going to go up.
There we go. And that's another thing that I really want to harp on here is that most people have seen the headlines about the first edition base set cards, the box going for 375 grand, the Charizard going for 250 grand. All of these other cards are much lower in price, and there's a much lower barrier of entry. So if you still want to get into the market, don't think, okay, I'm priced out because I can't afford these $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 cards. Just start looking at some of the newer sets, even the not
Team
the first
Rocket
edition.
and
I was gonna say the
yeah,
base set two,
yeah.
Jungle,
Team
Fossil,
Rocket,
Team Rocket.
Fossil.
Yeah, those are all still very old cards. Those are
Yeah.
what you'd consider our childhood cards, but none of them have really gone crazy like these other ones. So you can invest in them, and you're not going to be spending too much money to get your hands on these cards.
Absolutely. I still think that out of the big three, base set, fossil, jungle, you could still get them at affordable prices. Maybe not as affordable as people would like, but it's not out of reach like something like base set, which is, becoming basically modern art. You could still catch these cards under $1,000 and hold them and, just let them grow over time. Or you could still flip them for quick profits and invest them into, other things.
There we go. So can we go back to the Discord for a quick second? I saw some other
Absolutely.
stuff that I do want to talk about. You had these stores and the monitors. Can we talk about what those are for people who don't know what monitors are about?
Yeah, so we actually do have monitors in our group that tell us when certain items are restocking on specific retailers. So we have currently a Walmart, a Target, and a Poke Center monitor. So we are kind of using these as references to know when certain cards are coming in, when certain packs are coming in, and allowing our members to, catch them manually and just, collect them. So like I said earlier, this is the Champions Path box that is kind of hard to find in store, but with this monitor, we're alerted basically instantly when it restocks online. And also, we have different packs that are just loaded in here that you can find. The Deoxys pack from tag team, and other things from Champion's Path. There's all kinds of stuff. We also have running the latest Pokemon box, the Jirachi box. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this, but it is still reselling and there's still a profit to made. So for my flippers, I added it to the monitor.
Yeah, see, I love that. I've talked with you about this box, or I've seen what your comments on it, and you're not a huge fan. A lot of people actually aren't a huge fan of the cards and the packs that you can get in there, but you are impartial to all of that. You see that there is a flip to be had, there's money to be made, and so you're going to buy it regardless.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that when there's this nostalgia in a market, it gets very emotion based, and your investing and your flipping become a little bit more emotional than they would with other stuff. But you really need to put all of that to the side and just focus on the dollars when you're looking at these flips. So I like that you've added this pack. I know, or this box. I know you don't like it personally, but you like the money that comes with it.
Yeah, I think that it's important to be pretty impartial when you're doing something like this and investing in a market. I do love Pokemon and I have a passion for it, and I understand why investors are emotional about it. But as a younger investor, I didn't always have money to go out and buy a PSA 9 Charizard off rip, so I had to find creative ways to fund that money. It's the same thing with sneakers, clothes. Not everyone has the capital to just go out and spend $500. Some people have to earn that.
100%. And I feel like a lot of the people in the group are in a very similar situation. And this is, I know a lot of people in there are just looking for a quick buck, but I think more important than that are those collectors and investors who are more focused in growing out their collections and doing so by flipping cards, flipping packs, flipping boxes, and then using that money to fund their collections. It's something truly beautiful in my eyes.
Yeah. I think that we have a very good community going in this group. It's not just focused on money. It's not just focused on collecting. It's collecting responsibly in a modern way. I feel like every collector is becoming somewhat of a reseller because that's what the market is demanding at the moment.
It's unfortunate, but when prices go this crazy, sometimes you do have to let go of certain cards because the price is just too good not to.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
So going back to this whole flipping thing, I've had people ask me, like, how do I get my hands on these boxes or these cards, these tins, whatever it is? And I just want to go back to this. This is just one of the ways that you can secure these is you have these monitors in place. As soon as it gets restocked on their site, there's an alert saying, hey, this is restocked. You can go buy it at this link. You can see here it's got the add to cart. You click on that. It'll take you directly to your cart, and then you want to check out. So this is just one of the ways. Another thing that I preach and I'm big on is really understanding the schedule of the people who are restocking these shelves. And some people, they hear, okay, so Walmart restocks on Thursdays and Target's on Fridays, or it might be switched. I might be getting those two mixed up. But the thing is, just showing up there on a Thursday or a Friday and expecting to get one of these boxes or multiple of these boxes is not going to happen. So when you first get started, you're going to have to put the work in if you want to flip these boxes. What you're going to want to do is spend almost the entire day. And I know this is a pain in the ass, but you spend the entire day there. You figure out when these people are restocking the shelves. You chat with them. You try to get your in, and you try to get on their schedule so that every time that person is coming and dropping off boxes or tins or whatever it is, you can go in, they're coming, and you can secure them and then flip them for a profit.
Yeah, I think that it's also super important for people to, when you're first starting out, I just remember this story because it was hilarious. I spent maybe like a week just going to my local Walmart trying to catch the guy restocking. And for people who don't know, the company that usually restocks Pokemon cards and major retailers for around my area is MJ Holding. And they're also the people that make the mystery boxes. So I would try and catch the guy's schedule. And I just remember going in like every day, like around like 10, 12-ish, random times trying to catch him. And eventually, after doing that for a while, you kind of just get into the rhythm of which stores he's going to. And it actually makes it really easy to find certain things in store, as long as you kind of get the rhythm down of what's going on.
Yeah, that's the thing is I really want to preach the fact that anything that you're doing in these markets, because it has become a little bit more saturated, you're going to have to put in that extra work. You're not just going to be able to log onto a website, push the buy now button, and then put it up on eBay and sell it for a profit. There's things that are in place that you're going to have to do, the work you're going to have to kind of take, and the steps you're going to have to take, and the work you're going to have to do to really secure these to make this money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've gone through kind of investing versus flipping. We've talked about some of the stuff that is offered in this Discord. Is there anything else that you think my audience needs to know about the Pokemon market as a whole? Investing, flipping, anything else that we haven't covered in the Discord itself?
Yeah. So I do want to just give a couple, basic tips for people who really want to just start diving into it, maybe like today or tomorrow. I really recommend you just start with doing some basic research, getting accustomed to, the influencers in the industry, the people that kind of tell people what's hot, what's not, getting to know what's happening in the industry and the market, and then playing the game really safe. Invest for long term. Don't try and flip thousands of dollars off rip. Just get a feeling for what's going on, and then get into really good modern sets and hold for long term. That's pretty much guaranteed profit. It's one of the things that I always incorporate in my personal investing, and I just want people to take a safer approach, and then they can get more advanced or more tactical with their investing later on.
There we go. Yeah, I hate that you say hold on to some of these newer boxes, because as soon as I buy any of them or as soon as I get my hands on them, I rip them open. I do not own a single pristine box or pack. It's all ripped, and then I
Yeah.
look at my cards and I'm like, none of this is worth anything. But I love it because it
Yeah.
reminds me of my childhood, ripping those packs as a kid. And so I really appreciate that advice. I'm going to speak on this a little myself as well. You really need to figure out which type of either investing or flipping you want to do. Because the Pokemon market as a whole is huge. There are a ton of different sets. There's different types of memorabilia. There's boxes, tins, straight packs. There's raw cards. There's graded cards. So what you need to do is pick whether you're trying to invest or whether you're trying to flip. And then you need to specialize in a specific type, in my opinion at least. So when I did this, I focused on those first edition base set cards. It's not for everybody, but it was for me, and I was able to fully analyze and watch the market every single day. I knew what cards were selling for what prices, what changes were being made, what the 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s of every single card in the set. I also focused on the holos, didn't focus on any of the regular cards, the common cards, but I was able to tell you everything about those cards while I was focused on the market. And you need to do the same when you're first starting out. Eventually, you can expand. You'll have a better idea of the market as a whole, and you can cover more of the cards. But to start, I highly suggest picking one, especially if you're focused on investing. And then for flipping, I would say start slow. You could get caught up buying either the wrong cards or the boxes. You never want to go all in on one specific box. So take things slow, learn how the flip market works, because I know a lot of people are new to this completely. They're looking to make some extra money and they want to know how. So take it slow. I highly suggest checking out this Discord. We're going to be giving away some more spots. So if you're listening to this, you've got a chance to get into this group. I would highly suggest it. The calls, the resources, the people in there, it's all great. And that's pretty much it for me on biggest tips. Is there anything else you think we haven't covered today?
I think we did a pretty good job covering most of the Pokemon market, and I'm excited for what's going to happen later on in the market, not just this year. I'm excited to see what happens further down the road. I know that they have, awesome sets to come. So I think now is a great time to get into the hobby if you're interested.
Yeah, there's big things coming. Since you mentioned that, is there anything on your radar for the near future that we could kind of tease the audience with?
Yeah. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen for the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. I'm sure they're going to do something very interesting. And even, a lot of people don't really like Japanese cards in the US, but Shiny Star is really having a breakout moment. I mean, they're introducing a brand new type of card, and it's all happening within this month. I mean, Pokemon's exploding. We're getting a new type of card it looks very good. I'm sure it's going to hold value eventually. And there's just a lot of things just exploding like here and there, just new cards, new promos. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for this 25th anniversary. Excited to see what happens. I think for anyone who's interested in getting into the market, I wouldn't be shy about it. I wouldn't be scared. There are some people I've talked to who have said, I'm going to sit this one out. I don't recommend it. We've got some big things coming in the pipeline to look forward to. And so I think if you're interested, get involved now, start studying up, start learning the market, and be prepared for this 25th anniversary because things are really going to go crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't say that any better.
All right, man. I appreciate it. This has been a wonderful talk. I think we gave people some great tips on one, flipping, two, investing, where the whole market is as a whole, and how people can get involved. And if anyone has any more questions, you can reach out. I'm assuming to either of us on Twitter. That's where I focus my stuff on. My
Right? Yeah, me
handle,
too.
you guys probably know me. It's CryptoCharles __. And I believe yours is, I don't have it
It's
on me.
Gee Phazo, like Fayzo. And yeah, you can reach out to me on Twitter. You can reach out to me in the Discord. I'm pretty quick with responding to people. So if you have questions, feel free to shoot them.
Yeah, please, guys, reach out. We love talking about this kind of stuff. We're very passionate about it, and we want to see more people getting into the market. So if you have questions, again, reach out. Also, like I said, we are going to be giving away some spots into the Discord. It's been a little tough to get in because demand is insane. We've got a
It's been
ton of
crazy.
members. I know it's crazy. We have 600 members in there already. We want to make
Yeah.
sure that they stay profitable, so we can't let too many people in. So if you're interested, we're going to be giving away some spots. We're going to put together a tweet. You'll probably have been sent to this video from that tweet, but head back to that tweet. We'll be giving away some spots. Anything else before we go to wrap it up?
No, I appreciate you spending time with me and just having the discussion. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. I love talking about Pokemon, so thank you so much.